Howdy, Immortalium here. Well, today I'm here to tell you that I have read all 20 volumes of Black Cat. So, I'm here to tell you my opinion on Black Cat. So, first of all, what is Black Cat? Well, it's a Shonen Jump series, so this was published in Weekly Shonen Jump between 2000 and 2004. It was written by Kentaro Yabuki, who went on to do the artwork for To Love Ru. So, yeah. And it was later made into an anime after the manga itself had been completed, although the anime was only 24 episodes long, so I'm not sure how much of the manga they managed to adapt. But I've yet to see the anime. So first of all, what are my overall opinions on Black Cat? It's a perfectly fine series. It's enjoyable, amusing, but it's a bit cliche, and it's not particularly original. But it's still a pretty good series. So first of all, what is the plot? The plot of Black Cat is basically, it's set in a world where a third of the world's economy is controlled by this criminal organization called Kronos. We're introduced to our lead character, Train Hartnett, who is a former member of a gang or a group that protect Kronos, the Chrono Numbers, they're called. And he has left that group. He's become a sweeper being kind of like a bounty hunter, and it progresses from there. So, first of all, the characters themselves. Well, first of all, let's talk about Train Hartnett, who is our lead character. This guy right here. Train Hartnett, he starts out the series a little annoying. He is overly happy, very, optimistic. He's always going around with a big beaming smile on his face, and he's goofy. But we find out that he does have a really dark past, and he actually turns dark when that is kind of brought up. And it didn't mix too well for me at the beginning. That kind of joy that he has, and that kind of really dark past. But so it didn't blend too well for me at the beginning. But what surprised me is that over the course of the series, it was very subtle, to the point where probably most people didn't mention it. But Train Hartnett himself, he actually develops as a character, not enormously. It's not like he has some kind of big ideological change, but it's more that he's able to kind of accept his past without having to force, his joy. So he kind of learns how to, how to blend both sides of himself together, and that makes him a much more satisfying character and a much more interesting read than I expected him to be. We have his partner, Sven, which is the guy with the hat and eye patch. Sven, I confess, he was the least interesting main character to me. Again, he has a tragic past. Not quite as tragic as Train's, but still a fairly sad past. Sven, over the course of the manga, didn't really change at all. He became a bit more determined near the end, but overall, he didn't really grab me as a character, and, when he kind of went a bit missing near the end of the manga, I didn't really view him as much of a loss. Then, to complete off our trio of main characters, we have Eve. Now, she's not actually on the cover of the first manga, so I'm just going to show you her from the final cover. This is her over here. Eve is well, it would be a spoiler to say what exactly she is, but the best way to put it is that she's an experiment. She is able to manipulate her body using nanotechnology, and her development is also very interesting. She starts out the series very powerful, but also very naive. She kind of views the world almost like, well, she is a child, so it is a child's view of the world. As the series progresses, she reads books at an insane rate. She can remember everything she's ever read, so she becomes kind of a well of knowledge. which is very useful to train as Sven. Not only that, but she also develops, you know, as a kind of how to deal with situations. At first she's kind of antisocial. She kind of then learns how to interact with people, but she still has difficulty interacting people, and then finally she's able to properly, you know, communicate with people, to properly talk with things over with people, etc., etc. So I enjoyed her a lot as a character. Not the most original character, but, you know, well executed. There was also another character that you might have spotted that I held up on the first volume. The girl in this. This is Winslet Walker, and she is a thief. And she isn't too interesting. She's not bad, but unfortunately she kind of reminded me way too much of Nami from One Piece. So I was kind of dreading for a while that she'd become kind of part of the main gang. But actually it's kind of like how are we going to put it? Like, she's there and you kind of expect her to become part of the main gang because she's the woman. But in the end, she actually ends up more as a supporting character, and with that, actually works much better in her favour. We are introduced to a variety of other characters over the course of this series, but the main plot is that eventually this terrorist group called the Apostles of the Stars gathers up and they want to destroy Kronos. Now, it is led by a character called Creed Discant, and he shares a history with Train Hartnett, of course. But he himself, Creed, wasn't that great a villain. He's very one-dimensional. His motivations seem kind of flat. He doesn't really, you know, have much to like about him or to be interested in him about. So overall, as a villain, he wasn't particularly great. Now, the rest of the Apostle of the Stars is actually pretty good. But he himself, the leader of them, not particularly interesting. So that, again, without a particularly interesting villain, it weakened this series a bit as well. One thing that I found really good about this series was the art. So, basically, the way I should describe this art is that, for one, there's a fantastic kind of use of blacks and whites. So very nice contrast. Actually, for some reason, it kind of reminds me of Monthly Shonen Gangan. I kind of associate a certain style with them, kind of like the really contrasty black and white, like Black Butler and Soul Eater, etc., etc. So it actually reminded me of that, which is very good. The characters themselves are have very lovely designs. One criticism, though, I must have about the artwork in this series is that this kind of reminds me of Bleach, this issue, and that is that he uses a lot of negative spacing for the background. So basically, instead of drawing the background, he just kind of leaves it white or black, or he puts in some kind of texture, rather than actually making it a proper background. So that was kind of disappointing, but the characters themselves have such a lovely design, and the panel arrangement is very well done. You know, very engaging action sequences, and, you know, the comedic moments are well done. So, you know, overall for the artwork, actually, it's a very good looking series. Just that one little niggle about the negative spacing. The other issue I had with this was the world building. Kronos is a crime organization, and they control a third of the world's economy. We never really know how that works. It almost seems frequently throughout this that like they're an official organization, and quite often you'd kind of forget that they're, you know, a crime organization. So that I kind of found odd. Along with the special powers in this series is called Tao, and basically Tao is created by a certain tribe of people, but it kind of surprises me that they are such a small tribe in such a remote location, because with such power as the Tao, they should have been able to create a vast, powerful empire for themselves, so I found that kind of odd. So, world building wise, this wasn't really, you know, too well developed. But overall, speaking of Black Cat as a whole, it's a perfectly good series. You know, the characters are generally likable and connectable. They are funny. It has very nice artwork, nice action sequences. The story itself is actually decent enough. But it's not going to be one of those shonens that, you know, kind of changes your perception of the genre of shonen. Like a series like One Piece, Naruto, Attack on Titan, Rurouni Kenshin, you know, just to name a few, or Fullmetal Alchemist. So, I do recommend this series, but, and particularly at the price that I managed to get it at, it was all 20 volumes for €40, which I thought was insanely good value. And in fairness, it's worth getting, you know, if you can find it for a good, decent price. But it's not one of those ones I'll be, you know, I recommend you go out of your way to get. If you can find it for a good price, yeah, get it, you know. And if you really like the anime, definitely get this, because I haven't even seen the anime, and I'm fairly sure that this manga is probably better than the anime. But it's, you know, again, cliche, it doesn't have the best villain, its world building is relatively poor, lots of negative spacing. So, combining all those positives against all those negatives, yeah, it's a good series, and I did enjoy reading it, but it's not mind-blowing, it's not, you know, brilliant. So, if you want to get it, if it sounds interesting to you, you know, go ahead and get it, you know, get the first, I don't know, 2 volumes of it and see how you think of it. But it's not one that I, you know, recommend that you go out of your way to get. Yeah, so that's my review of Black Cat. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.